The life we deserve. Nice set of verbs. I ain't talking about them Jacksons. I mean those great characteristics and actions. I'm kind of intrigued by the situation. I'm not talking about relations. Nice set of buns, no pun intended. The body of the all the law got me extended. I like the way you walking when you talking. What's your name? Just be kind to others and treat them all the same. Damn, good. Calm down. I'm already getting hot. Is there any way we can take those pair of bowls back to my spot? It's metaphysical the way you come before all the rest of the writing that I put up on the door. It's a precious little castle called the Covenant on Freedom Lane. You know, the one that tells me not to take myself in vain. Well, treat others with integrity and sincerity and make it rain. Let us walk in those very same ways. Mustered up the courage to catch up to the days when we lived with ambiguity and felt no hatred or shame. Onion heads with no real bread, not worried about the fame. Then on the side, some taters deep fried, these flavors of precious domain. An amazing meal that is such a big deal, no need to add any more romaine. Forsake not the ham, chicken, lamb, or whatever floats your boat. Just don't let cannibalism cross over on the moat. A nasty little spirit with Egypt and Rome on its cloak. Eat nothing with lifeblood still in it, about the only thing Noah didn't leave soaked. A little phrase that sometimes leaves me stoked. A deeper meaning with clarity from an old wooden oak. If someone needs an idol or some extra condiments to live, I would rather let them be happy and forgive. As long as they don't cause any real harm. Sometimes people who are destructive cause me to reach out with my right arm. Actually, being kind to your pets is also really blessed. I hate it when I see cats and dogs distressed, making stupid videos while forcing on the paws, then try to give up poor animals when it nips or claws. I am no pharaoh, so do what you will. Wait, aren't I making the sandwich still? I already finished the main course. I don't want anything spicy, it will leave my voice coarse. Or as the proper saying, the throat is hoarse. I'd rather do the listening and extend to the source. Well, let me tell the truth, sometimes I like to use the force. Don't think me a magician even though I said call me the gray. Only LOTR fans will understand the past line I say. Past and present tense when seeing the light. Was, is, and will be, I guess 3 tenses in sight. I am not speaking on what's wrong or morally right. Goodness, how many political colors did they add to this traffic light? There's a bunch of veterans and retirees waiting at the cross. On the other side are the homeless and poor looking for a boss. I am hoping both sides no longer take a loss. Some politicians don't know how to split a footlong, have been running countries into the ground with their capitalistic songs, then get on television and complain about crime, immigrants, poverty, and bongs. Inflation all over the public news, like corporations and the government don't regulate the rhythm and blues, leaving paper trails of tax evasion like paw print clues. That's a joke because they don't pay taxes or proper dues. So there's no paper trail of anything on the path to internal revenues. Nightmare on Sesame Street with the middle class on Struggle Avenue. Word of the day, equalite. Respect my authority. A silly spoof of cheesy poofs for all who understand what I say. A couple of lines come to my mind until it gets rebuked. Until you've washed an elderly ass you've never really puked. Don't think me sick, wait, hurry quick, tell them my profession. I am simply a CNA, no need for recollection. I am not a carpenter unless it's spiritual wood. That last line is going to leave a few viewers up to no good. I am sorry, I have a sense of humor sometimes. I wouldn't call it breaking any crimes. Although a hard head makes for a soft ass, some of these women have mountains for heads and eat a lot of grass. Okay, let me chill. Some people fear existence and keeping it real. I am confident that will change. I am here for all the meat on the range. If it isn't flipped over time, that rotisserie might burn, it cost a pretty dime. Probably using kids like Tiny Tim to sew shoes with those precious little fingers and limbs. I am already done with the meal. I better take off before I open another seal. On those chewy chocolate chip muffins, those little 4-packs fill me up like stuffing. Feeling good like the sick finally getting rest with Robitussin. Like a baby taking a nap after hours of fussing. Last couple of lines, I don't mean to be rushing. I just have a large notebook like the part of Asia that's Russian. In the Middle West because freedom is the best. I'd rather have separation from church and state than have anything to do with the rest. That isn't a strike against the Sabbath, I am not on that type of quest. A few more objectives until the mission is complete. I still see a few more gods trying to come before who I am, and they aren't even being discreet. Will be met with a fireball whenever they take a seat. Don't be disappointed when I crush the opponent's kings with the brass of my feet. I am not the kingdom of anger and wrath. I'd rather take a moment to think and take a spiritual bath. I'd rather not deal with the internal feds. Have me broke afterwards seeing red. Then I'll be feeling so blue and forget how to talk to you. Hello everybody, I hope you're having a beautiful night. I do not advocate for cigarettes. They affect the lungs. So I just wanted to talk to y'all on camera real quick and put some sound waves into the air, if you will. So as I go throughout life, certain people that talk to me sometimes give me certain terms and conditions and restrictions on their types of lifestyle and behaviors, which coming from the heart, that's good, you know what I mean? Because it's clarifying who that person is. It's telling you their terms, it's telling you their boundaries. And everybody has that, me and myself included. There are boundaries and terms that I live by. And so that's a beautiful thing. That's each person's world. But you know, as I get older and as I experience the world, what I'm beginning to realize is that what's happening is a lot of people, their experience and their boundaries and their makeup, their spiritual chemical makeup, if you will, has been corrupted. And so you can think of me like antivirus software, if you will. So no, I'm not saying before computers and software, I am. And any atheist that has a problem with what I'm saying, or philosophers or whatever, they'll say I'm religious. But I'm saying the same thing they are. Essentially what's happening is a lot of people in different areas, and I can testify to this, when there are certain amounts of fears and paranoias, there are things that aren't allowed. And I'll explain. Let me come into the light. Years ago, as I've told you all before, I left religion and I did something to make sure that at the time, based on my knowledge, I did something that I thought would never let me come back, so to speak. Because what I was experiencing was, as I was growing up, everybody was super holier than thou. I mean, you getting spankings if you do anything wrong. You're constantly getting the law. The other people in the church all have this holy image, you know, only no braids, only dresses, long clothes, you know, certain things. And I agree with certain aspects, and you know, that's for my garden. In terms of everyday life, I don't think, me personally, like I'll give you an example. I'm a man, and as I've said before, I like women, but the problem is, if every time I came into contact with every woman that I met, and they had all their busts out and all that, and they were just like almost naked, well then that's perpetuating an image for me to see your nakedness. Well, the thing is, you know what I mean, if we lived in a different type of society or world with different rules and regulations, that's one thing. But as you come into society, you have to understand that there are other people around, because these different concepts are bumping, if that makes sense. So I'll hear about feminism and women respecting and whatnot. But then that turns into like a monster where it turns into women versus men. I understand what politics are for and different things like that. But then it turns into a monster of this side versus this side, and then there's a bunch of fighting. And so back to the original idea that I was talking about people losing their passions and whatnot, and people being put into terms and conditions that turn into a spiritual cage. People will tell me different things about life, so I'll hear people coming up telling me I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I can't do this or that, because God's going to punish them. But as I've told many people before, if you actually do your own research, the name is I Am. So basically, if we're made in that image, that means we are existence, we're alive, we exist. And so with that being said, I try to let people know that it's good to have boundaries and different things, but when you enslave yourself spiritually, what's happening is the only thing that's going to be produced is torment and fear. Back to what I was talking about years ago, when I had left and said I'm not going to do any of this, or not this as in making videos. I left the church and said I'm not doing all this stuff as an adult. Well, what ended up happening was I was still paranoid on the inside. I was still afraid on the inside. I still had all these fears and paranoias. And so basically I was doing what I'm doing right now at the current moment. I was walking in the dark, defending for myself. So there's different things that come to my mind. My dad used to remind me, he was like, Davey used to have to strengthen himself. He used to have to strengthen himself. And things like that would stick with me over the years. So I would start writing my own poetry in my heart. And so when I'm saying that, I basically would just start taking words and creating new things with them. So oftentimes I used to think I was joking or thinking I was, because after I left the church, I went through this hardcore phase of listening. And I'm not saying metal is anti-church. I'm not saying metal is anything. What I'm saying is I started listening to metal, getting into like Slayer, Metallica. I started listening to heavy music. I started doing stuff like growling, screaming. And when I say growling and screaming, I'm not talking about like just running around like a beast. Let me come into the light. There's a genre where over the music, they're growling. And so I was doing this. I was kind of using metal almost like a song to strengthen me. There'd be times when I'd be terrified in certain things. And so then I'd start listening to music. There's a band called Opeth. And the reason I like Opeth is because I like music, but I don't just like random all types of music that other people listen to. I like melodies. I like rhythms. I like good actual music to me. And so if I say I like good music, I can't go create an image in the sky of what good music is. That's for me, my kingdom, my heart. And so what I'm essentially saying is I was listening to Opeth, and they had this song called Harvest. And it's like, stay with me a while. And different lyrics and the melodies was like, it was so beautiful to me. But then at certain times, I told you I possess a fire. As a child, I knew about the word. So I'm going around as a kid like David and Solomon. And I was just fiery for the stuff. So the lead singer of the band Opeth does this thing called growling. And so I don't know what it was, but when he used to growl, it was like a, ooh, it used to make me feel strong. But disclaimer, be careful. A lot of these artists' voices mess up, and a lot of these artists go through different vocal problems and stuff. So I'm just putting that disclaimer out there. So I started getting into metal and growling and all that. I kind of felt sacrilegious for a while, but I'm not going to sit here and say I ever was like, oh, I'm into the devil. It was either God or nothing. I didn't do none of that silly stuff. And so essentially, technically, I was still following because I never put any other entities in my heart, in the sense that I never believed in like this God or that woo. It was always, I knew there was a God. I just wasn't there yet. I was learning, I was seeking. And I was so brainwashed from the old religion that I was having to find my own way finally. And so I'm going throughout life learning, doing this. At certain times, I've left my parents' house and was on the streets and stuff. When I say on the streets, I wasn't really like doing crime or nothing like that. I was learning my way, staying with different people, doing different things. And so ultimately, as time went on, I started using certain scriptures and stuff. I'd be like, I hold the keys to heaven and hell. And then a thought would come to my mind like, blasphemer, you're bad. I'm like, why am I bad? I'm just saying scriptures and stuff. So then different other stuff would come to my mind like, I am the fire that comes down and stops the darkness. So then I'm thinking to myself like, okay, different things come to my mind. So, but as all this is going on, it's like a mix. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, there was a scripture that never left me. And there's a lot of scriptures, but I want to explain to you guys, when I was going through all this, there was a scripture that, it's in Joshua, I am salvation. And the scripture was, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Be strong and of good courage, for I will be with you like I was with Moses. And so that just always was in my head. I just never. And so, going back a little bit before I continue going forward, there was something that happened that I don't really talk to too many people about. And I don't know why, but it just feels weird when I talk about it. But I'm going to put it out there. When I told you I had religion all my life since I was a kid. But when I became an adult, as I grew into an adulthood, they were doing like backsliding, I think it's called, where they were like super religious. But then as I got older, they were kind of falling out of it. So they call it worldly backslide. So I was really out here going to school, running around with kids, cussing and stuff. When I say cussing, to me, that's a word is a word, and it all depends on what you give the word meaning to. So I was just, as a kid, I'm like, I cursed in detention one time. It was like freaking terrifying. But as time went on and I started to go into society, it was more like, okay, what am I doing with certain things? And so when I turned, I think it was 19, I finally was like, okay, I'm finna give my life back to God or whatever. Everybody's, you know, the whole world, give your life to God, give your life to God, give your life to God, all that stuff. So I went back to the church, and as I told you, I never really, like, Jesus was the thing, but I didn't understand the concept. I didn't know if it was like the Son of God, if he was God, if it was, I didn't understand none of that. So one day I was starting the process, and I said, in the name of, I'm not even gonna say the name, but I was like, I repent. And I can't explain it. I don't know if anybody's ever experienced this. When I said that, I felt like it was like a jump, boom. But it wasn't boom, it was like an interior boom. I was like, what? I was like, I was in the atheism. What's going on? I don't know. So it was like, boom. And so I got to tell y'all, when I went back into the church, it was miserable. Because I'm telling you, I don't play around with certain things. So I was in the basement with a garbage bag on me, putting ashes on my head, praying and stuff, asking for messages and just reading the Revelation a bunch. But as I was doing this, I was starting to tell people stuff, right? Different people in the church. And I told you when I was growing up, it was super holier than now. It was, you do this. But now that I'm an adult and I was coming to bring back that same fire, everybody, I was like, I'm just telling y'all my testimony. I was like, it was a point I was like, holidays are bad. Holidays are bad. Oh, the prophet said don't do holidays. Oh my God. It was like, I even got to the point where I was like, birthdays. Oh no, birthdays are bad. I was just running around, dude, judging. And so then I was like, nah, okay. After that, it was probably like a year and a half, 2 years. I did that. And then after a while, I was like, nope. I'm telling people stuff and they're rebuking me. One of the things that had initially happened is somebody that I grew up with, that was like an uncle, I had told him about the birthdays and holidays. And looking back on it now, I can understand why he told me this. But he was like, you know, Junior, you can't be a fanatic with certain things. You gotta chill, man. You gotta just. And when he told me that, you know how you could be looking at somebody's face and smiling. This is my outside face, but on the inside, this is my inside face. Whoa! I turned into like Goku Black for a minute. I'm just being honest. When after I couldn't watch TV, I couldn't have friends like that on the outside, where I couldn't do anything for the longest time in my life. And then I was told by one of the strongest people that was growing up, telling me this, don't be a fanatic. So then this happened. Oh yeah, that's when the metal happened. I started listening to metal. I said, fuck religion. Just being honest, I'm telling the truth. I said, fuck all this shit. I'm done. Went to the world. When I say went to the world though, I still had, this is why I want people to understand. Like, I felt like I was out, and that's what it felt like. I did the thing. I was like, fuck this, fuck that, you know, all that. Went to the desert and did that actually. And this isn't a spiritual thing. I was at my sister's house in the desert and I was like, fuck this. So then came back home or whatever. I call it a little vacation, if you will. I came back home and I was just living life. Started getting into metal, started experiencing new stuff, learning new things. But I still had a law in my heart, and I didn't realize it, the 10 Commandments. There might have been a couple times, you know, I've stolen here or there, but I wasn't hurt or harmed or nothing like that. And when I say that, I feel terrible afterwards. And there are times that people are caught and go to prison for stuff like that. Stealing is not cool. So I'm just giving you my experience when I felt like, oh, I don't have nothing or no rules. But I was still following the rules, you know, don't kill nobody. I wasn't married, so I didn't understand at the time, no adultery. You know, I still respected my parents in a sense. I was kind of being rude at times, but, you know. So at one point, I was getting older and older, you know, working, doing different things. I went to college and all that. And I ended up, over time, this is more like recent now. You know, I thought I was done with religion, but the problem was I was still having like nightmares and night terrors. What was happening was I would wake up in the dark, and just be running around. There was times that I have ripped a door off the wall on accident. I was lifting back in college during this journey, so I was really big. I was pumping. So there was a time I ripped the door off the wall just from night terrors and stuff, just freaking out. So as time went on, I'm just ignoring it, living every day. I'm like, this shit ain't real. I'm blah, blah, blah. So then one day I was working at a particular job and I ended up getting sick. I mean, really sick. When I say I got sick, I was like I was sick because what had ended up happening was COVID was going around already, but I had caught something called histoplasmosis, and histoplasmosis is curable. But the problem is when I was first told about this, I kind of freaked out. I ain't gonna lie. I was like, okay, it's a wrap. I I was just like looking for meaning or something. You know what they call it, the stages, and I was looking for acceptance or whatever. So I'm like, okay, so I know their God isn't real. So, and I still been getting blessed. I got a job now. I got a car. What's going on? I'm missing something. I'm missing something. It's you never left me or forsake me. What am I missing? So I started researching, learning. I was in the documentaries for a while. I had already had a college level education, but I just went. When I went to YouTube at first, it wasn't for another self-help. My algorithm was music, video games, and Khan Academy, KHAN Academy. It's a YouTube learning academy, and I was learning about physics and science and just the universe and all that, and just everything, just learning more on top of what I've already learned. And so, when I learn things, I don't go, as I told you, I wasn't into religion hardly at all. So when I was learning things, it was from a physical reality and scientific aspect. So then I got really sick, caught histoplasmosis. But what ended up happening was the way they told me in the doctor's office, they were like, we found a mass. Because one day I woke up from work and it was like, boom, boom, boom. I was like, what the fuck? It felt terrible. So then what it ended up happening was I went to the doctor, and they was doing all scans and stuff, telling anxiety, smoking weed and cigarettes and blah, just treat me like another blah, blah, blah. So some time go by and I went back again, and they did an extra scan and found a mass. So the same nurse from the first time that told me I was having anxiety and gave me a Haldol, or whatever it's called, I forgot what it's called, was sitting there, I'm so sorry, is there a number we could call? Because we just heard the word mass, and we like, you know how when you there with somebody listening, and you hear some shit, and you get so disconnected by the news that you start to go in your own kingdom, and you be like, the nurse went, I could see it. So then I was like, okay, at that point, you know how when your building just crashed, it was like, boom. I was like, because I was at a point where it was like unlimited anger, because life was just, it was like the type of anger that's turned into like when a nova does that initial compression and then so I was told that. And so that's when really I started looking. I was like, okay, it's time. I was fiercely looking. I was reading this book. But the problem is, and as I've told y'all before, like when I was still having nightmares and stuff, the fear was there still. So I was doing all this raw Opeth metal and all this other stuff, but it was there. So I'm looking. One day, so I'm looking, and I'm learning, and I can't, it's not making sense. I'm like, something's got to be real. What is the mystery of all this? So I was looking. I was finally at the point. It's like when they say in the book, they're going to have all their lives, and they're going to be looking at the blah, 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 talking about where. So, but I wasn't finna lose, because I will not bow. So I was looking. And one day, I went to the doctor's office, and before they told me about because they told me they ended up finding it, and it was like it's histoplasmosis, chill. So they was running a bunch of tests and not understanding why, my immune system wasn't properly, and it's because of COVID. COVID suppresses the immune system. So I had histoplasmosis, pneumonia, and COVID all at the same time. So there's a little relief, but I had to take medication for like 2 years. It was anti-fungal medication. So I was taking that. And then, for a time, it was like, I was still, it wasn't, I'm like, why isn't it healing? So one day in the doctor's office, I heard that inner voice. It was like, all right, You did all this searching. You can't find woo. I'm adding this part. It's conceptually there, but so then I heard, all right, give your life to Jesus and repent, and you can go to heaven. So all of a sudden, all the anger, on top of the anger that was there too, I meant to say there was like a, when you finally hit that moment where you're just like, and so there was like unlimited anger and unlimited I just don't give a fuck no more. It was like two sides of an angry coin. So, and I know that sounds weird saying that I didn't give a fuck no more, but the not giving a fuck wasn't from a pure, like, clean, like, it was like a, you know what I mean? So I was in the doctor's office and I heard it, repent and you could go to heaven to Jesus. And so that's when I was like, the I don't give a fuck no more kind of went to the back, and the black hole was like, oh, you will not bow. Give my life to a child. And so then it was like, at that point in my mind, because the tongue is like a swift blade, but in my mind, I calculated that, okay, no God or any of this other stuff, and now nothing, it's just me and me. And there's like, I'm sitting in this office like, okay, I'm not getting better, blah, blah, blah. So my brain just was like, all right, buddy. So then I'm still researching and learning and trying to figure stuff out. And then one day I'm sitting on a couch, and this might not make sense, but I was thinking about Jerusalem at the end for some reason. I just kept thinking about that castle. And I closed my eyes, and this might not make sense, but there was nothing there. It was all dark. Just not close my eyes, it was dark. Then all of a sudden, I seen, it was like all the pretty colors. It was like a whole castle that was just invisible, and I felt the colors of Jerusalem, the stones. It was like there. So I'm like, at that moment, I felt like I don't know where this came from or anything. It was like all this franticness happening to like, boom. It was just like a big bang, like, fuck it. And I felt all this color on the inside. I know that might be a weird. The only other time I felt this, disclaimer, I don't advocate for drugs. I smoked keef for the first time. I don't know if you guys, or a hash. It's like a little hash. It's like a little graham cracker. And what it is it's weed, but it's the pure THC from weed, and then they bake it and turn it into a little cracker. I put it on top of some dro and smoked it. And when I hit that for the first time, I felt like it was like a rainbow going through my body. It was the weirdest thing. So that's what it felt like when I was sitting there on the couch. And as I was sitting in this invisible capsule, next thing I heard was, use my fire. And like, I can't explain to y'all, like, if you ever see somebody hit the lottery and they melt, but they're excited at the same time. So then it was like, use my fire. I'm like, okay, that's not the name of anything. That's just saying, use my fire. So then for some reason, shortly after that, I started getting into what's the real name. And then I started Googling and looking, and I was like, what? I was like, oh yeah, I am who I am. I was like, that's God. And then I don't know why, but when I said that, I am who I am, that's God. I was like, it was like the formation of the stars. It was like, I am. So then, that's when it started to begin. I started making videos talking about the silliness of religion, trying to open people up. There's the law. Trying to open people up and all this other stuff and get them to understand, like, hey guys, the name, blessed is he who comes in the name, it's I am. I was geeked. All these years of it was like all these years of torment, and then boom, I'm the right, it's like, me, oh, and everybody too, do unto others. The angel that throws his vial in the air. So I was just like, wow. So then it was ironic because all my life, my parents had us in that book, but there's something my mother did in particular that I don't want to say saved my soul, but it kind of did, and I understood that pizza dream now. The one I talked about in the last video where my mom served me a pizza. My mom has given me the 10 Commandments all my life. When I used to get chastised or in trouble, she would say the 10 Commandments to me. All the time, over and over and over. So that's crazy how things can work out and turn into the most beautiful blessing in the world. So, time's still going on. I'm learning. Until I'm getting to a particular point when I'm truly seeing how to truly baptize the Spirit with words. It's us and the name, using the name to confess certain things into clarity and happiness. So, oftentimes on camera, I will say, I am peace, I am clarity, I am happiness, I am joy. I am thankful for everything that I receive that is merciful and peaceful and humble. I am happy to live life without harming others or without harm. I am happy to do that which is right. And I am happy to stay behind the stone with the 7 eyes, all the sevens everywhere, the ark. So think about this, the spirit that hovers above the waters. What does an ark do? It hovers above waters. What did the lamb do? Or Yehohanan's story. What did Yehohanan do because of the lamb? He was able to walk above the waters. John the Baptist, that they tried to hang in the New Testament as a slave, and for 30 silver, remember Zechariah? But here I am salvation. And as Zechariah said, I was given a new garment and a new hat. And then as it is written, right, the accuser tried to accuse me, but who I am, the one who chooses Jerusalem, says, I rebuke thee. See, so it's just like the most beautiful story. And that's able to be done because I am who I am. And who I am writes the story. Who I am holds the pen. Who I am doesn't need to depend. Who I am uses the words, but not like unrighteous verbs, so that I can stand in glory and tell a beautiful new story. Perhaps a coloring book, those don't even have words. It's interesting how they communicate between the birds. All they do is hum and hymn, but they don't have any destruction in them. So I just want to put that out there, you know what I mean? I had a dream one time where I was down in like a cavern, and this reminded me of when I saw the writings on this wall, because it wasn't really writings, it was like a long scribble. It reminded me of when I think the King Darius was doing foolishness and putting stuff and taking stuff out of the temple, which to me means basically taking stuff out of our hearts to create a God. When I hear about Lot being grabbed by other men, that basically means to me they were trying to, at the moment, so this is like a spiritual thing I'm trying to help. That means to me that Lot was trying to be a righteous man, but they were trying to grab onto his garment saying, be our God, be our God. He was like, nah, man, get off me. That goes against the covenant, the 10 Commandments. When I hear of Abraham, and then people profess about Abraham, but then profess about Jesus, right? So these concepts are bumping. They'll be like, call no man your father. But then they'll sing songs called Father Abraham. It's like an algorithm or Ouroboros that's basically subtly putting in information to lead us to and fro. And then once we're lost and don't know where to go, that same entity inside the head tries to strike down and pretend like it's bread. And then a lot of people end up being dead, being afraid to profess life, which is I am, the true life. I was going to say wife, but then, I mean, I don't want to mess up any nouns that might manipulate the sound waves and sounds. And then what ends up happening to the future will have them wearing something foolish that pretends to be couture. Well, there may be different pronunciations and nouns, but just try to understand the type of verbs with my sounds. All I ask is that we do to others and be kind to our brothers. So I just wanted to talk to people for a little bit on camera. I gotta go to work in a little bit, so have a beautiful day. And remember, whether it be dark or day, it's always what's inside that truly has the right thing to say.
You can say what you want. I already know it's destiny. Maybe you should stop resisting it. I understand it can be scary, but you'll be safe in my arms, baby. Just take a leap of faith. Come on, just take my hand. 'Cause our vibe is irreplaceable. You don't see this kind of love